Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Szerwiński. Officials in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Kamianske say several people are injured after a Russian drone attack which took place overnight. Ukraine's Air Force is reporting that a combined 135 Russian drones and missiles were launched at the country in the course of the latest strike.
8 people were injured in a Russian drone attack in Kamianske, a city in Ukraine's southeastern Dnipropetrovsk region. According to the local emergency service, the roof and one of the entrances to a 4-story residential building that was struck in the attack were partially destroyed. 5 people were pulled from the rubble of the building, rescuers said, without providing information on their condition. Vehicles, a transport company and infrastructure facilities were also damaged in the attack, the emergency service said, adding that a rescue operation was underway.
Poland continues to build up resilience against potential dangers, with the latest government program aiming to encourage citizens to obtain skills relevant in times of crisis. According to Poland's Deputy Defense Minister Cezary Tomczyk, in 2026 alone, the number of those taking part in the new training initiative is expected to reach 400,000.
In November and December of this year alone, we will train around 20,000 people through individual training programs. The total number of participants trained during these 2 months across all forms of training will reach approximately 100,000. In 2026, we plan to train around 400,000 people in total through individual and group training within military educational programs, reserve training initiatives, and as part of the voluntary basic military service.
Now, also on Thursday, Poland's Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz announced the launch date of the country's first military reconnaissance satellites into orbit, expected to reach their destination on the 10th of November. The satellites were designed to facilitate all-weather terrain monitoring, allowing the armed forces to swiftly react to any emerging threats.
We are modernizing our army. It's the largest transformation in history, with the largest budget ever of over 46 billion euros next year. Not only will we make purchases, but also modernize equipment across all branches of the armed forces. We are also building a database management system, focusing on artificial intelligence. Finally, we are about to send the first Polish military satellites into space.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine has made Ukrainians embrace their own heritage even more than before, leading them to reject many remnants of the country's Soviet past. In another move aimed at putting problematic legacy to rest, Kiev will now rename one of its coins, whose name was inherited from the era of Russian dominance.
Ukraine plans to make a monetary change. The symbolic decision is designed to move the country further away from its Russian inheritance.
We should finally complete monetary reform and remove any affinity, any connection with Moscow, because we have our own name, and the time has come to finally take it back.
The Ukrainian currency is the hryvnia, a name rooted in the history of the Kievan Rus. But it's the hryvnia's subunit, the kopek, in Ukrainian kopeyka, which is problematic today due to its association with the Soviet era.
The kopeck has been retained in only 3 of the 15 former republics of the Soviet Union: Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine.
And because of the war, Ukraine no longer wants to be in such company. That's why the kopecks are to be replaced with shachs. Shach in Ukrainian means steppe, and it was used as a monetary term in Ukraine in the 16th and 17th centuries.
The world became truly black and white, especially on issues related to whether we need to move away from Moscow.
Ukraine aims to mint the first shach coins already this year. They are to gradually replace the kopecks.
Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski weighed in on the financial aid being provided to Ukraine during his exclusive interview with TVP World. He said that while he has hope for continued US military intelligence support, Europe is now the most prominent source of financing for Kiev, which should be reflected in the EU's position in the upcoming peace talks.
I hope the US will continue to supply Ukraine with intelligence data. Of course, Poland pays for the Starlink terminals. and the ammunition for US weapons to do with anti-aircraft and deep strikes capabilities are also important. Europe mostly pays for that, and that's why I think Europe should be more prominent in negotiating a future settlement.
US President Donald Trump is expected to be a no-show at the G20 summit in South Africa, following his comments in which he claimed the country shouldn't even be part of the group in the first place. This comes after Finland's President Alexander Stubb suggested the event could serve as an opportunity for trilateral talks between leaders of Ukraine, the United States and Russia, a plan which now appears rather unlikely to materialize.
For generations, Miami has been a haven for those fleeing communist tyranny in South Africa. I mean, if you take a look at what's going on in parts of South Africa, look at South Africa, what's going on. Look at South America, what's going on. You know, I'm not going to, we have a G20 meeting in South Africa. South Africa shouldn't even be in the Gs anymore because what's happened there is bad. I'm not going. I told him I'm not going. I'm not going to represent our country there. It shouldn't be there.
One of the largest controversies since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began back in 2022 was that Russian citizens were still able to travel across the European Union. This, however, may be about to change as stricter rules are being prepared, which could make the so-called multi-entry Schengen zone permits a thing of the past.
Russians will only receive single-entry visas, with some exceptions for humanitarian reasons and for people who also hold EU citizenship. Authorities in Brussels have previously made it harder for Russians to obtain visas, when in 2022 the EU suspended its visa facilitation agreement with Moscow. Visa issuance, however, is a national competence, which means that the European Commission can make the process harder but cannot impose a total ban on Russian visitors. The new stricter rules are part of a package of measures intended to reduce the number of Russians entering EU territory. According to European Commission's data, in 2024 more than 500,000 Russians received Schengen visas, mostly from Hungary, France, Spain and Italy.
Swedish lawmakers have taken a major step towards developing the country's energy independence. On Monday, they voted to lift the moratorium on uranium mining, paving the way to greater supply diversity as the country continues to invest in nuclear power.
Uranium mining in Sweden will resume on January 1, 2026, as the government in Stockholm plans to build more nuclear reactors. So far, Sweden has used uranium imported from the United States, Kazakhstan and Russia in its nuclear power plants. Swedish municipalities will have limited opportunities to object to the issuance of environmental permits for these mines. According to District Metals, Sweden has about 27% of Europe's uranium deposits. The company is already conducting research and plans to open a uranium mine in the country in the near future.
A suspected Iranian spy has been arrested in Denmark following reports of illegal activities. In addition to obtaining vital information for the regime in Tehran, the man is also believed to have been preparing violent actions against Israeli facilities on EU territory. Aside from suspecting the man of espionage for Tehran, authorities say the Danish resident was also planning to attack Jews and Israeli facilities in Germany. He was previously detained in Germany, and a European arrest warrant was issued for him after he reportedly tried to obtain weapons and persuade another person to commit murder. The man denies ever being in Berlin, however. Copenhagen will be asked to extradite the man to Germany, as the case is connected with a different incident of a man arrested in Denmark and delivered to Berlin. The view from space on what is happening on Earth has never been clearer. As a result of the successful Sentinel-1 mission, the family of satellites forming part of the Copernicus Earth observation program has now been expanded. Available to disaster response teams, maritime authorities and environmental agencies alike, the satellite constellation will provide frequent updates on critical data. Sonia Gatabishan has more.
3, 2,
Launch of a European rocket
allumage de ce SR et décollage.
with a European satellite from a European spaceport. On Tuesday, Ariane 6 launcher carrying Sentinel-1D satellite took off from Kourou, French Guiana. The satellite successfully separated from the mothership and was placed in its orbit 34 minutes after launch.
We have another Copernicus satellite up and flying, Sentinel-1D, the fourth of this generation of radar satellites.
The Sentinel-1 mission, of which the newest satellite is a part, delivers high-resolution synthetic aperture radar images for the EU's Copernicus program.
Copernicus is an operational program, is probably, I can say objectively, the most advanced and extensive program of civil Earth observation in the world.
Although the first comprehensive data from the new satellite is expected in approximately 3 months, the role of Sentinel-1D is already clear.
Looks at our planet night and day, through rain and shine, through smoke and fire. To monitor melting ice caps, erupting volcanoes and suspicious ships, helping to fight disasters, rescue people and counter crime, using space to make life better on Earth.
And while much of the mission's success focused on placing the satellite weighing over 2 tons, 700 kilometers above the Earth, the responsible team found another reason to celebrate, looking at the flight parameters.
We have a launcher that is incredibly accurate. The accuracy of the injection is around 200 meters. So you must imagine a launcher going at almost 30,000 kilometers per hour, and the injection is 200 meters. So this is absolutely crazy. This is incredible.
Ariane 6, a European heavy-lift launcher, made its maiden flight in July 2024, but there seem to be many more flights ahead of it, and its destinations are also likely to reach new heights.
We are already planning to go to the moon with Ariane 6, with a moon lander. It's called Argonaut, and it will land almost 2 tons of cargo to the surface of the moon.
The first operational flight of Argonaut, Europe's lunar lander program, is planned for 2031, and it is intended to deliver infrastructure that will support efforts to facilitate the return of humans to the moon. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.